Welcome to Go Rangers Radio, where the New York Rangers are always the talk of the town. If you bleed red, white, and Rangers blue, hail the king, follow the bread man, and know how to spell Capo Caco, then you've tuned to the right place. And now, here are your handsome hosts, Kevin DeLury and Paul Cuthbert. They're not always going to get it right, but you can be damn sure they'll pretend they are. Now, let's go Rangers Radio.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Go Rangers Radio. Broadcasting live from the Go Hockey Media Studios in New York, baby. Yours truly, Mr. Paul Cuthbert, and everybody, please say hello to your friend and mine, Mr. Kevin DeLury. KD, how you doing, buddy?
Recover from whatever went on today. The insanity of the trade deadline. It never disappoints. It's always a fun day of madness. And, today, I think, at least in Rangerland, it lived up to the hype.
It's all good, buddy. I think it's all good. I'm feeling good. I had a smile on my face all day. Hey, look, man, it's the same team, man. I mean, goodbye to Brady, but, man, just where do we start, buddy? But first, let's just say hello to everybody. Welcome to a special edition of the Go Rangers Radio Show, a post-apocalyptic NHL trade deadline show. Especially,
do we get time and a half for this?
No, we don't. But
do I get a White Claw and a half for this?
Yes, that you get. That
okay,
no doubt. That always.
Good.
We always got extra of a White Claw for you there, Katie. No doubt about that. But here we are, Monday, February 24th. Everybody was just, hanging on to their seats. Well, some people were, but I would say for Ranger fans, man, what a day. KD, first of all, we got to send some love and good thoughts out to Shesty Sauce and Snoochie Boochies. And for those of you listening for the first time, that's our nicknames for Igor Shesterkin and obviously Buchnevich, our buddy. They got into a car accident today, buddy. What's that all about? Thank God they're okay, but it looks like Shesty's going to be out a couple of weeks. Can you imagine? If they traded Hank and Georgiev? It's just incredible how things turn out, but thank God those guys are okay. But, Katie, let's just start there with that madness this morning.
Well, I know. I mean, they scheduled a press conference, and you're like, oh, boy, there's going to be some news, and you're thinking maybe Kreider, and then, I know there was a lot of speculation that, did they trade Lundqvist? Because that would be, a reason for, a press conference early in the morning or earlier in the morning. And then, there was some rumors about a car accident. And to be honest, I didn't believe it. I just thought it was some schmo. Some guy trolling Ranger fans coming up with a car accident. And then sure enough, there was a car accident. And, it's funny. I mean, I don't mean to laugh. It's funny now, I guess, that they're okay. But, the first thing that popped in my head is, you forget that and I bring this up sometimes, is that these guys are people too, and they can get into accidents and things like that. And the first thing that popped in my head was that Seinfeld episode with George Costanza, and he's talking to Keith Hernandez, and he's like, 32 teams. They're all flying around. No plane crash. I just for some reason that popped in my head. You have all these players in the league and you never really hear about a car accident, And then, of course, it happens to our team with our young star goalie who all of a sudden is injury prone, apparently. So, but it just added to the madness of the day. Yes, thankfully they are both okay. Sounds like Buchnevich is in a little better shape than Shesterkin, who's going to miss a couple of weeks with the fractured rib. But
he's done, KD. He's done. It's over.
Just sit him for the rest of the year. That's fine. And the rumor I heard going around was that Lundqvist was driving the other car. So
see, I was going. You beat me to it. I was going to say Georgia was doing it.
We're on the same wavelength, man, Paulie. We've been doing this show together, I think, for too long now that we're
Can you imagine
the same
though? Can you imagine? 3 weeks I went on my crazy rant about trading. Both Hank and Georgie. Could you just, one day we'll find out. Maybe we'll find out sooner than later. But, man, if there's a chance that they were going to trade, could you imagine if they had traded them on Sunday or Friday or something. I mean, I just think it's crazy that happened on Sunday, and that's the news we got this afternoon. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is amazing how it all works out, and I've been against the three-headed goalie monster from day one, and apparently it was necessary with the way this is ending up. My goodness. I mean, to be honest, and I said this the last podcast, it's only been positive since they went to this three-goalie system. I think all three goalies were playing well. The team is playing the best hockey of the year. And now your one goalie gets into a car accident, so you have two guys ready to go. Amazing. You can't make this up, Paulie. You can't make it up.
You can't drink enough White Claws and make something like this up at a bar or in your man cave. You just can't do it. Well, like I said, the most important thing is thank God those guys are okay.
Yes.
And as a team, I mean, you just sit back. I mean, they were saying it all day in the NHL Network. I mean, just the fact that we've got Georgiev and Hank as our backups, is just crazy. Oh, man, so Georgie's going to get the start tomorrow. But, I mean, what a day. And obviously the big news, and I don't know which way to go to here, Katie. I mean, we usually start off where the Rangers are. We'll do that a little later as we look at the week ahead and what else is going on. But let's stick with what J.D. and Gorton did today. Definitely got to talk about the biggest news of all, obviously, and that's Chris Kreider staying with the Strangers. He's not going anywhere for at least 5 to 7 years. He gets a 7-year deal, $6.5 million per. He's 28. This is what we talked about. We brought it up so many times. You've had your pros and cons about this trade. I was pretty much under the assumption, as maybe a lot of fans were too, that he was gone. But I'm telling you, man, especially the way the team has played these last 3 games and actually the last month, you got to just, applaud how these guys are coming together. I'm really, really happy that he's with this team, and I think JD said it great today. The team is young. You got to kind of keep some of these guys around, and Chris is one of those guys. But come on, KD, take it away. What are your thoughts on Kreider staying here with us?
Yeah, I mean, look, the plan here is for this team to be a Stanley Cup contender in 2 to 3 years. At least that's my opinion with the way this rebuild is going. And guess what? Kreider is still going to be a very productive player in 2 to 3 years, even beyond that, probably for the next 4 or 5 years. And if this team is lucky enough to win a Stanley Cup over that time span, next 2 to 3, 4 to 5 years, whatever, Kreider is going to be a big part of that. There's no way he won't be if this team ends up winning a Stanley Cup. So in that essence, it's a great move to bring him back because, he could still be a part of this rebuild. And then when they do become that contender, he's still going to be a very productive player. Having said that, I hate long-term deals. I don't care who it is, how good the player is. I'm not happy about it. I think maybe the final 2 years of that contract may be tough to swallow, but I guess you deal with that when you get there. If this contract and this rebuild ends up with a cup or two, I could care less. Couldn't care less. What Kreider's contract looks like in the 6th or 7th year. I think that, and obviously we'll get to it. I think the Brady Shea trade opens up some cap room, makes it a little bit easier to swallow. The contract at $6.5 million, and I've mentioned it on past shows. I was more concerned with term than dollars, but the Shea trade opens up some dollars for Kreider and opens up some dollars for some other players to be re-signed as well. Whether you're looking at Strome or D'Angelo, Georgiev, whatever they decide to do in goal this summer as well. So yeah, look, it's great to have Kreider back. If they would have traded him, there would have been a big hole to fill. You don't know if they'd be able to do it. They brought in Gauthier, a young guy who sort of fits that Kreider mold, but you never know. You just don't know what he's going to turn into. And the Rangers could have been just chasing another Kreider for the next 4 or 5 years instead of actually having Chris Kreider and winning a Stanley Cup. So, it's hard to have any sort of negative feelings or criticize JD and Gorton with bringing Kreider back. Homegrown guy, hopefully be able to finish out his career as a Ranger. Look, if he ends up with a couple of Stanley Cups, maybe end up seeing his number hanging from the rafters, and away we go.
You're not saying one Stanley Cup. You're saying a couple of Stanley Cups?
What are we doing? What are we doing here, Paulie? We're not rebuilding for a cup. We're rebuilding for multiple cups. This is what this is about. It's not about let's maybe get there and maybe win one. This is like, no, we want to be a perennial Stanley Cup contender. That's what they're doing here, and that's what bringing Kreider back is about. You want to have that veteran presence, the guy who comes to play come postseason time. He is clutch in the playoffs. He's always been clutch since they brought him up right out of BC into the playoffs. The guy scores goals in the playoffs. So that's why he's back, and that's why I feel good with where the Rangers are with him, moving forward. So let's go. I'm pumped.
And we all have to admit, I mean, it helps that the team has been playing well, because if this was a different run that they had been going on here this last month, and we talked about how important the hockey that was coming up. Back in, in December, end of December, and then January, and talking about this month. And they played pretty damn well. And just an unbelievable week coming up. And just the fact that the big games that we have coming up against the Flyers and Vigneault, the fact that we're in the mix right now is just absolutely bonkers. It's awesome. I love it. It's great. But, man, the fact that we don't have to sit here and kind of imagine if it was really bad, how many other guys might have been tossed off this ship? I mean, the names that we've talked about, Strome, even Buchnevich, a couple of defensemen we talked about, even D'Angelo and so on and so forth. I mean, obviously the number one thing was the goaltender. Hank was going to go, Georgiev was going to go, all this stuff. I mean, it's great now to see to be on the other side, Katie, is just unbelievable. I mean, even seeing Hank now, and he's kind of settled in, we're reserved. Obviously, the injury now to Shesty is just unbelievable. But, Hank's settled in. Georgiev's not going anywhere. So it's almost like now the team has this time. Everybody exhales. We can breathe a little bit. You can't be unhappy about Kreider staying. And obviously, as a Ranger fan, you're glad he didn't go. The money is the money. It is what it is. As far as the cap, I think, even with some of the stuff they're making, I think they're going to be somewhere around $60 million or something with the cap, and it'll work out in terms of whatever the rest of the RFAs do going forward. But, man, if they had been on a different swing, Kevin, this could have been worse. There could have been a lot of strangers on this Rangers team.
Paulie, I've been saying all year that it's not about wins and losses.
That has nothing to do with what I just said.
Let me finish. You gonna let me finish?
Yeah, hold on. Let me take a sip of this. Let me just wait for this. Go.
With the way the Rangers have been playing, and now that they've kept Kreider, it is officially, and I can't believe I'm saying this, about wins and losses. And I think that Kreider still being here, like you said, is because of wins and losses coming down the stretch. Strome, D'Angelo, whoever you want to pick. I agree that the fact that they went on a little bit of a run here probably had a big effect on what JD and Gordon decided. I mean, a lot of the reports were that it wouldn't, but there's no way. I mean, they're seeing the way the team is playing. They're starting to gel. And look, they didn't move Kreider. They didn't move Fost. They didn't, move any of the guys that we've mentioned. Guess what? That means they're looking to win this year. Or
the right deals didn't come in, KD.
Well, I think that there's no way that there weren't deals there for guys like Kreider and Fost. I just don't believe that they weren't there. I mean, how could they not be? I mean, you're seeing, different guys going, like a guy like Pagiot and the Islanders giving up, the house for him. I can't imagine that Boston didn't have a nice package on the table for Kreider, or the Avalanche didn't have a nice package on the table. I mean, you're telling me that the Avalanche's plan was Nemestikov? I mean, they weren't looking for somebody else? I just don't believe that. I can guarantee you that Gordon had some nice deals on the table, but, they like what they got, what they're seeing from the team. The mix of young with the veterans, and I think that they wanted to keep it and see where this team can go over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So, and even this year, if you're not making any of these moves, and again, I think the Shea move had more to do with the cap and making room for him, making room for Kreider, and maybe some of these other guys over the summer to get them in. I mean, Shea had been struggling. He was a guy that I've been mentioning for months as someone they should be looked to be trading. So I think it was a